What's up, everybody? This is your girl, Hattie B, the executive editor of The Lead Up. When I tell you I'm so excited today because I have one of my besties here with me, Mr. Beck Moore, the CEO of Community Action Association of Pennsylvania, and he is one of our founding sponsors. Friend, I'm so lucky to have you on my podcast.
Look, I'm so lucky to call you friend and be here. I'm pumped.
When I tell you I'm so excited, thank you for the yes.
Of course.
I really, really appreciate it. I told Beck, I said, don't you come in here with no suit, no lapel. Like, I don't need that, Beck. I need the raw, the real, all things of Mr. Beck. And so I got you.
I legit changed in the parking lot.
I saw that. I ain't used to you wearing no boots.
In the truck.
The hat backwards.
In the truck, stripped. I was like, I'm just going to do this in the middle of Harrisburg. We'll see what happens.
I appreciate it. They might be used to it. It's okay. Because Harrisburg be doing some things out here. No disrespect, Harrisburg, but y'all be wilding out a little bit.
Well, hopefully this proves to people I wear other clothes other than a suit.
It proved to me.
I mean, I like a good suit, but this is chill. This is chill Beck. Okay,
I'm glad you didn't come here with no chaps because Beck has a motorcycle, and I was just like, bruh, you ain't gotta do all that.
Next time.
So you came in here looking good. I came here with a new hairstyle. Now I told the people before, I was like, if I look like Wesley Snipes off of Demolition Man, I don't need nobody putting that in the chat.
I mean, I might have not sat down. I'm just telling you.
Would you have told me the truth?
I'd have told you the truth. I'd have made sure you're okay first. I'd have made sure, you're in a right space to receive the information
Thank
first.
You,
just upfront contract kind of deal.
Hold space.
Think you good?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Hattie, I have something to tell you.
Look, tell me the truth, because sometimes people be having me out here looking like Boo Boo the Fool, and we are not doing that. I don't want to look like Wesley Snipes, and I don't want to look like Dennis Rodman.
I get it.
Before the crash out.
As somebody who has to be filmed a lot and on camera a lot, you need somebody to be like, just
help a sister out.
There's something in your beard, your hair's weird. Just tell me. I don't want to look a fool.
I don't either, and I just need people to be honest. Tell your friends the truth, people.
Yeah.
Even as leaders, you got to tell the truth, even when the truth hurts.
Yeah. If I'm looking a fool, please tell me. I don't look a mess.
I'm gonna tell you.
I don't want to embarrass the family.
I don't want you to do that because your family look good.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Hey, Ashley, how you doing, boo? I'm gonna tell our story. So today's topics is really about shrinking in the rooms we built. I felt like this was really necessary. Beck and I was talking earlier just about us being part of these marginalized communities and how a lot of times we shrink ourselves, especially in the rooms that we built to protect our peace, but also to protect our future, our employees. And I have come to a point in my life to where I'm so exhausted from shrinking who I really am. And everybody has talked about, imposter syndrome, but being the age that I am, I can no longer do that. I no longer have the bandwidth to shrink because I've done it for so long. And then when you shrink yourselves and other people get the accolades or are able to step on your shoulders and get this recognition that you have built, yes, it's okay for us to share that space. But when I feel myself always doing that, it becomes a problem. I become burnt out. I feel like I lose a sense of who I really am. And as a leader, I feel like there could be this ebb and flow of shrinking, but also when people expect for you to shrink to make them feel good, that's where the problem comes in at. Yeah. And so before we dig deep into that conversation, I love telling our origin story. So do you want to tell it or do you want me to tell it?
I like listening to you tell it because I feel like I was having a little bit of an out-of-body experience that day, I feel like.
When I said it the last time.
No, well, on the stage, and I felt myself blushing, and my ears turned red, so I'm going to probably blush again. I'm just going to recognize that now. Note the ears. That's where it's going to start, and then it'll filter the rest of the face.
You're already blushing now.
I know. I can feel it. So, that day at that event, I was having a little bit of an out-of-body experience because a little bit of the, backstory is... That was sort of one of the very first events coming back to Harrisburg that I was presenting and really talking about who I was in front of a large audience of people that some people who knew me and some people hadn't seen me in a long time.
Right.
Right. So we'll kind of get into why that matters in just a second. So it was
you never told me that.
Yeah, it was a weird day. And so then to have that experience and meet somebody who immediately you could trust.
Yes.
Like pretty quickly knew, Yeah, so you tell it because
we were definitely connected at the hip after that. So, okay,
Yes.
y'all, I'm going to tell you the story. So I want to say this was about what, maybe 4 years ago? It has to be. It feels like forever, but it was 4 years ago. Beck and I were these panelists at an event here in Harrisburg. And I saw Beck from across the room, and I was like, "Oh, he cute." I was like, "Hey, boo boo, who are you?" I was like, "Cause you cute and you got a beard." I said, "And he coming here with a 3-piece suit on?" I was like, "Okay then." So he comes over to the table. He was like, "Hi, my name is Beck," and I was like, "Hey, Beck, how you doing?" And so we proceeded to talk, and he was like, "Was anybody sitting down in the seat?" I was like, "Nobody but you." You can sit here beside me. And so we started talking and everything. And when I see Beck smelled like musk and lavender and almonds and all the things, I'm trying not to lean over. Like, I was like, "Oh, he smells so good." I was like, I ain't never seen him before. And so beautiful smile, very just well tailored, everything. So I was like, "Oh, are you on the panel too?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to be one of the panelists." And so it was me, Beck, and there was like 2 other people, and this other like very overly masculine
machismo.
Yeah, he just
asserted through his privilege on the table.
Yeah,
That's the way I'll describe it.
He was given some Jersey Shore Guido, like.
Yeah.
It was a lot going on. So in my mind, I was like, "Lord, please don't let me sit beside this man." Lo and behold, I had to sit beside this man. And I feel like he might be a good person, but I don't know. It just, the vibe was, he wasn't vibing.
No.
And so we get ready to get on the panel and we walk up. So it's 2 other women, Beck, the guy, and then me on the end. I was like, "Why did they put the black woman on the end?" I need to ask her that question, but we ain't gonna go there. And so we go through the questions and everything, and then Beck begins to tell his story. So I'm leaning in because I'm like, first of all, he don't know he finna be my boo, right? Boo as in my friend. And then second of all, I was just like, wow, like he is very interesting to learn about. And so then Beck proceeds to tell his story, and he's like, yes, as a transgender. And I was just like, I said, "I knew I liked you."
Well, and I think the thing, and we just shared this when we were at a thing together recently presenting, I could feel the energy on the stage was so interesting, right? Like it felt like everybody was getting right up close to something, but then minus our machismo friend.
Yes.
Who was jumping around because he couldn't sit down and swinging his book around that he had written and all the things.
Did nobody want to read?
No, I don't read the book.
Put it on Audible, sir.
And I felt like people were just like getting right up close to the thing that they were trying to say. And even having only met you a little while ago, I was like, oh, I can feel Hattie wanting to say something, and I feel like she's nervous to say it because we're sitting in a very
predominantly white.
Predominantly is an understatement.
Yes.
And I'm going to assume cisgender, largely straight, right? And I'll say that like that's my bias speaking based on the people I knew in the room. And so I could feel you wanting to say something. And so I proceeded to sort of talk about a little bit about my leadership journey and people who had leaned into me. And my line that then caused people to literally, mouth drop open was something to the effect of, right, as somebody who has privilege but has lived for 38 years as a woman and now is, an assumed straight man, has privilege that I don't always understand. And I'm trying to figure out and advocate and use for good. And the one lady like dropped her phone.
Oh yeah.
You could hear it.
Yes.
Right? Clatter.
Yes.
In a very quiet room at that moment.
It was a mic drop moment.
Well, because when people think about transgender community, right, they don't think about people who, a woman who has transitioned to being a man who looks masculine or a man who has transitioned to a woman who looks, feminine. There is this perspective that just isn't real, right? And so it's one of the things that I try to really lean into and talk about because when people meet me for the first time, what do they assume, right? They assume that I'm in a certain socioeconomic status, I probably drive a nice car, that I come from a place of privilege, and some of those things are true now.
Right.
But it ain't always been that way.
Right.
And so I try to really make sure to make people question those assumptions because everybody makes them, right? We can't help it.
It's inevitable.
Right. It's the way, that's the way we're trained to think. Right. And so I really try to push up against that. And in that room,
Yes.
right, and I saw you lean forward. And
Oh, yeah. I was like, oh, no, he did it. I was so happy.
And so that moment, I feel like that just crystallized the bond
Yes.
that was already sort of, right, like,
Yes.
you just meet, when you meet people, sometimes you just click with
know.
people. There's something about their energy, something about their spirit, the way that they, you know, sort of lean into conversations and pay attention. And then afterwards, you gave me a big hug and, you know, we had a conversation.
Yeah, I told you will not get rid of me. It was kind of like the Step Brothers movie, if y'all haven't seen it. Will Ferrell, and I forgot the other dude's name. But they were like, did we just become best friends? And he was like, yep.
Yes.
So, like, that was the moment where I knew that you were my person. Like, you were my safe space. So when I say, like, you feel like home to me, I mean that by I can really show up as Hattie, and I know that there's not going to be any judgment. When I can come and talk to you about the discriminations that I've faced, or, you know, the mistreatment, or me being an empath and me getting categorized as being emotional, you know, or just when things are just popping off, I know I can come to you and you won't say, well, Hattie, is that really accurate? Was it really a racial thing? You'd be like, okay, well, friend, I hear you, but look at it this way. And so when you have people like that in your community, that's something that I don't take for granted. Yeah. And knowing that I can pick up the phone or text you and be like, yo, I'm really having a day. Yeah. Your girl is finna pull up on somebody. I'm fixing a what's the man name? Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm fixing to do that.
Yeah.
In the office.
Yeah.
Can you come get me? Do you have bail money?
Yes.
Because it's on the way.
For you, yes.
I appreciate it. So you are one of those friendships that I treasure so much, and I love you to the moon and back.
Back at you, my girl.
So you being on here today is really going to be phenomenal, because our stories are similar in the way as we talk about leadership and these intersecting identities that we carry with us all the time, but it's always those physical appearances that people see and they don't really understand the core of who we are. And you have built a lot of rooms. And talking about, you know, who you were once before and who you are now, is there ever a moment to where you have to make yourself shrink? And let's talk about that for a little bit.
No, we absolutely can. I also want to just backtrack for a second to say that I don't know if you remember also, after we did that talk together, we had coffee together. And we both sort of said something very similar at the beginning of the conversation was, look, you can ask me anything. And I said to you, like, you can ask me anything. Just know that if you ask me a question that isn't appropriate to ask somebody else, I'm giving you permission.
Yes.
And not everybody's going to give you permission. And also, like, I only speak from my experience. I can't speak to everybody else's experience as a transgender person, right? As somebody who was an out lesbian, right? Like, this has been my path. And we both have honored that and given each other feedback about different things. And so, yeah, I think it's really important to kind of, that was the secondary moment that just continued to prove that you were who you said you were.
Yeah, I really try to show up as authentically as I can, as much as possible. Because I remember there was a time where I couldn't, where I didn't want to. And it takes us back to shrinking. Yeah. Like, I never gave myself permission to be Hattie, really, until recently. Like, I wasn't Hattie in my 20s, my 30s. Now, granted, your girl 42, but baby, I look good.
Girl. I mean, like, I'm 44.
I'm just saying. And you look good.
Thank you. You look good too.
But why does it take us so long to really understand the true value of who we are? And I know I asked you a question with a question.
I know.
But, like, this is what has been baffling me, even as a leader. Like, it can take us, sometimes people are born, sometimes people are made. Yeah. And I keep asking myself, was I born a leader or was I made a leader?
Yeah, I think it depends on the person. I think people can be, but to truly become a leader, from my definition of a leader, in terms of, like, the space we give people and the way that we lean into people and the way that we believe in people, I think you have to, we've talked about this a lot in the past, where we really have to know ourselves. We have to know our triggers, right? We have to explore those things. So when somebody, what we think is coming at us, right, we have to evaluate, okay, is this really what's happening? Or is this my past experience that's telling me that this is what's happening?
Trauma response.
Right, trauma response.
Yeah.
And so I think that I used to think about myself as a leader because I was managing people and I was an executive, right? And had a lot of responsibility. And I thought, oh, yeah, I'm a leader. But I know now that I was externally sort of showcasing what I thought I needed to be as a leader. And it took really getting true about who I was for myself to really become the leader that I wanted to have followed.
Wow.
Right.
And what was that journey like for you? Because, and going back to the first question, like who you were before and who you are now, shrinking in those rooms, but I feel like shrinking is a part of the journey, but it can be a hard one and a lonely one. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think shrinking for me it's changed in how that shows up now. So as somebody who, dressed sort of, living as someone who at the time identified as a woman, but was also trying to figure out really what my identity was and very scared of admitting to myself, right, what I felt like on the inside and being terrified of what the reaction was going to be to that. So dressing relatively how people would have defined me as a masculine woman right away, right, you are perceived as different when you walk in the room. And so being scared of, right, if I say this, are people automatically thinking something different of me?
Right.
Right. And, I think this is really relevant, I'm sure, to your own experience, right? Because you don't get to choose if you say, I'm black.
No.
You black.
Yeah, I'm black. Last time I checked. Girl, what's that? Black.
Right. So for me, right, like then there were times that I would grow my hair out and I wouldn't look as evident as somebody might assume that I was, right, an out lesbian. And so then I could sort of see myself shifting how I would talk about things and how I would show up. But I was so self-conscious in that version of myself. I would start to sweat and shake, even if I was just introducing myself, Hattie. Like, hi, my name is, and this is my job. I would almost get to the point where I was going to throw up on the table. Like, when I tell you, like, even standing up in line at Starbucks was anxiety-inducing for fear people were looking at me and being like, feeling some which way about what they saw. I can't really fully express to you the amount of just energy that it took to just be. And so when it got to the time, so I transitioned sort of, in the thick of COVID, really, at a time where the county I was living in was the first county to go under quarantine. And I was working in Delaware and I was driving home from Delaware from my office. And I had this moment that I'm driving on 95, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm about to be stuck in my house. And at the time I'm in a relationship that I'm not, I'm trying to figure out I'm not really happy in.
Yeah.
I've got a son who has special needs, who we're trying to figure out all the things for him. And I have this moment where I realize, oh my God, I'm going to be stuck having to look at myself. And the thought of having to do that and not being able to escape and burying my head in work or being able to go do something or work out and just literally being trapped, having to look at myself. I was just like, I'm just going to let go of the wheel because I can't do this, right? I just can't. And I don't know what got me home that day, but somehow I got home. And, you fast forward to now, I think this summer is my 6th year of my transition.
Yeah.
And I think about how I show up in a room. And when I shrink now, it's because of feeling like I don't know something and this worry about, like, is somebody going to think that, like, who is this guy and what has he done? And it's in these moments of still like this kind of like self-conscious energy.
Absolutely.
But not nearly like it was. And so I don't know, it shows up in different ways, right? Like I think about, I've told you this before, when I go to talk to certain people and I'm there to represent my organization, am I there to represent me? Am I there to represent a group of people? Am I advocating on behalf of who? And there are these moments where I start to worry, right? Like, okay, if somebody Googles me, are they going to know that I'm trans? Are they going to know this thing about me? What are they not going to know? And so if I speak up, like you're having to trade in something.
Yes.
I'm having to separate myself from myself from myself.
It's always, and it costs you every single time.
Yes. And to go into a room to have to advocate for something that you're trying to do for like my organization.
Right.
And it may be somebody that I know would not be willing to talk to me if they knew who I was.
Mm.
And so I find myself now, I choose to not often be in the political space. You know, I have a director of public policy now for my organization because I don't want to have to make that choice.
Right.
I can't look at myself in the mirror then for a different reason.
Right.
Right.
And you're shrinking to protect your peace.
Yeah.
Your sanity. And I'm so glad that you didn't let go of the will.
Me too.
Because I would have never met you.
Yeah.
We need people like you in this space, in this world. And a lot of times when we talk about, you know, those marginalized groups, you know, Black people in specific, there's a lot of similarities that we and other marginalized groups go through. But I think the difference that I really try to get people to understand is I can't take my skin off.
Yeah.
As much as I tried when I was little, as much as I would kind of fall back into the background, I can't take it off. Right. You know, so it is when we talk about those other intersecting identities, I'm like, but at least you get the status quo in whatever room you walk into.
Yeah.
I do not.
Right.
And to where I always have to decide, like, okay, how much am I going to shrink today, or do I just need to be invisible completely?
Yeah.
Not sometimes to protect my peace, but just so that I won't cause harm to anybody or embrace the stigma that comes with me in being who I am.
Yeah.
And you and I talk about this all the time. I'm like, it's so hard because I just want to show up. I just want to do the work. But I know that once people learn and see who I am, I know that there's going to be these biases that come with that, these questions that come with that, or this narrative that comes with me being a Black woman in leadership.
Right.
That a lot of times people don't realize it takes a lot for those who are different from a society standpoint to just put their hand on a doorknob. Yeah. Like the amount of deep breaths we have to take, the amount of times we fix our hair, we make sure my tone is right, I'm smiling, my makeup look good, I'm dressed appropriately, just to be heard, just to be seen, just to say, oh, you can come sit beside me.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people don't realize how much effort that takes. So when we talk about the privilege and we talk about the power that certain culture groups carry, that is a lot.
Yes, it is a lot.
And it can take a lot out of you, but also if you don't have this culture humility and this culture competency of the people that are in the room, and even the body language can show you that they're shrinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, when I interviewed for my job, I was very, very transparent in my cover letter and in my interview because I had received a lot of not great things,
you
know, in prior organizations in all kinds of different ways and experiences. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that wherever I went next, I didn't want to step backwards. I didn't want to have to dull my shine. I didn't want to have to not be able to speak about who I was because I had spent so long not being able to have an opinion about certain things. Because the type of organizations I was working in, right, like there's just certain things you were allowed to talk about and certain things you weren't allowed to talk about. And so while being trans is not the only thing about me, at the point when I'm transitioning, right, particularly early on, like that, there's a lot happening in my life. I'm trying to figure out, right, like how to navigate the world in a different way that I don't understand. I'm having a lot of first experiences for the first time, right, where I'm walking into certain places and being received very differently than what I ever have. And hearing things that men talk about when there aren't women around, and it was a little bit of a shock to the system, right? But I think, trying to think about how I want to explain this.
Just explain it.
So I remember, you know, I was at one of your sessions once at a conference listening to you speak, and you were talking about allyship, right? And you had asked the question of the audience, if those that you're an ally for were to see you at your worst, would you still be considered an ally?
That was a deep question.
Girl.
I came up with that by myself.
That's a hard question to ask. And that, I think I've thought about that question a lot. And I've thought about, right, like, when do I trade in? When do I not say? When do I say? And I try really hard to always, right, be really honest about all the things. But in that interview situation in particular, right, like, I watched the room, and it was a Zoom room. There was like 15 people on a Zoom room because we're coming out of COVID and people, right, like, you know, and it's a large statewide organization. And I watched the Zoom room, and so I talked about being trans, and I told myself, if I saw somebody shift or move uncomfortably, I'm out.
Did you?
Yeah. And nobody moved. And the follow-up statement, you know, there was no sort of, right, like, permission or like awkward conversation or language. And I was like, okay, well, if these are the organizations that I now represent, right, are on this call interviewing me, like, okay, then this is the place I want to be. This is sort of step one to trying to figure out, like, is this a safe space?
Right.
And now when I'm talking to people or meeting with people, you know, I try to listen first before I sort of, right, like, just
The power to pause.
word vomit all the things that I am thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But I have all these very interesting moments, to your point about, right, like, I get to choose when I share. And I was having drinks this one time with this guy at a conference, and we'd known each other for probably like 2 years. And, you know, had lots of conversations about work and all kinds of different things and trying to figure out some things and some solutions and introducing him to a bunch of people. And we're sitting at the bar after a couple of conference sessions, and he starts talking about politics.
Oh, Lord.
And I'm like, okay, I've not had enough bourbon for this. He's like, yeah, you know, identity politics. I just don't understand. And people talking about all these things and like transgender that and transgender this and da. And I just took a big sip of my drink and I said, well,
Shrink.
and in that moment, I'm thinking to myself, okay, am I going to just listen? It's been a long day. Am I going to speak up? I got to navigate, right, the relationship with this person. And what are the implications that if he feels some which way?
Right.
Or just do it and whatever happens, happens.
So what happened?
I said, well, you know, as somebody who is transgender and used the line, right, and lived 38 years of my life as a woman, and now, right, 5 years later at the time, is trying to navigate the world in a different body, in a different space. Let me tell you, you know, when you're told you don't exist, it matters. When you have to literally worry about where you're going to travel because there are bounty hunters looking for transgender people. When you're worried about getting arrested because you have to pee. And if you're watching right now, right, like, I'm a pretty hairy dude. Nobody looks at me sideways when I go into a bathroom. If I go to the ladies' room because that's what the law says, I'm bet that the police are coming in either way.
Right.
Right. So I've got to think about all those things. And so I appreciate that it doesn't really matter to you. And I know that ultimately, right, you're trying to figure out how this plays out and all these things. I don't need you to understand. You don't need to understand. It's like, I'm not going to ever understand what it's like to be a straight white Jewish man. Right? You don't need to understand. You just need to know that I deserve to exist in this world.
Right. Just like you do.
Right. That's all that matters.
I think. So what happened afterwards? What was his response?
He was like mid-drink and was like, and he's like, I didn't know. I was like, right, because how would you know?
Did he talk to you afterwards?
Yeah.
I'm sure you.
We don't talk as much as we used to, though.
Because of the association.
I think he just, I don't know if he felt embarrassed. And I, you know, like, we still talk. Like, it's just, to be fair to him, we've not seen each other in person in a while.
Right.
And, you know, his job could have changed, right? Like, it could just be happenstance. I don't want to assume malintent. I'm going to give some grace.
Yeah. That's a hard thing to do.
Give grace.
Give grace.
Look, that's a whole podcast episode.
That's a whole nother podcast. When I tell you my grace cup has run us over.
Yeah.
I don't have any more. For a certain amount of people, I just don't. And like you said, that's a whole nother. When as a leader, when do you give up the grace?
I don't think you can. I mean, that's not true. When somebody directly is in absolute insubordinate, opposition, and you have tried everything you can, when you have extended right opportunities, you have opened up the door for conversation. And when I have said, to individuals, look, thank you for the feedback. We're going to agree to disagree. I give lots of space for feedback in my organization. But at the end of the day, right, like, even as a CEO, I still have a board of directors to report to. I still have people that I've got to think about. I've got to mitigate risk. I have to remember I'm a membership-based organization. I'm not just out here selling widgets, right? Like, I got a lot of things to consider. It's not just about me. And so when I tell you that, when I say this is a painful decision to make, and you don't honor that, and you say, well, to heck with you, I'm going to do what I want, that's a problem.
Yeah. Now I got to pull up.
Yeah. Or
right
if you lie to me, right?
Yeah.
That's when you don't lie.
Yeah.
Don't lie.
That's a whole nother.
So that's my line in the sand for grace. Otherwise, I think you gotta.
I hate when leaders lie.
Look, it's just
because when leaders lie and then they try to hold you accountable for their own lie, I'm like, I can't be a part of that.
Yeah.
For one, you don't pay me enough to be a part of your lie. Now, if you start paying me 6 figures, I will lie all day long because I know my check gonna be right in the next 2 weeks. But don't bring me a part of your lie, bruh.
Yeah.
See, you bring something out of me. I can't do it on the podcast.
Sorry.
Okay, we're going to get to the question. All right. So you answered one question. Second question is, have you ever looked around the room you built or helped shape and realized, I still don't feel safe here? And what does that reveal about the difference between power and belonging?
Oh, you sent these questions ahead of time, and I looked at it, and I looked at it, and I looked at it, and I looked at it.
You probably like, that doggone Hattie.
Well, I mean, look, that's why I love you, because we have hard conversations, but they mean a lot, and they're conversations that should happen.
Yes.
So this is the awkwardness of running a membership-based organization, right? Is that if I say or do something to call a leader out, even though potentially I know that something is wrong. And to be clear, I'm not saying that this has happened. And protect the innocent and the not so innocent in this answer.
Okay. For the podcast, we'll protect the innocent. Yes. Amen.
But there have been different situations where I hear somebody say something and I'm like, okay, this has to be addressed. And am I the right, I have to ask myself, right? Like, am I the right person to ask the question? Who else observed it?
Right.
Is there anybody else around?
Right.
And at the end of the day, there are no other trans leaders in the room. And so my hope is, because I'm very transparent about who I am, is that somebody else is going to say the thing or do the thing to speak up if it's about my community.
Right.
Or, is there somebody else who isn't emotionally exhausted to be able to have the conversation? Do I need to talk to a board member about having the conversation?
Right.
So I think I really try to create spaces where I can create as much belonging as possible. But to say that I always feel like I belong in the rooms that I've created, no, I don't think that that's fair.
Honestly, I'm right there with you. There's a program that I'm over, and, I appreciate those who are active and engaged and safe, but knowing that, this program is predominantly white individuals. Yeah. There are some that I feel absolutely safe with, but I'm like, when the rubber meets the road, are you still going to advocate on my behalf?
Right.
Because there are a lot of times where my voice is so exhausted, my position is seen as less than. But I think where I'm really becoming to have this battle is where I don't feel safe with my own. And I remember when I started my job that I have now, I told my supervisor, I said, I had a lot of bad experiences with women of color in leadership. Like, I am very triggered because I've experienced a lot of harm. I don't want to go through that with you.
Yeah.
And as time progressed, I started to experience things, not necessarily with her, but with other leaders to where I trusted. And I'm just like, wow, you just like them. And the intentional harm and incivility and the bullying that was caused because I'm asking questions for clarity. I was told that I disrespected them because I was asking clarifying questions. How do you expect for me to do my job if I don't understand? And I started to have this physical response every time to this individual, to where like I would throw up knowing that I would have to go meet them.
Yeah.
Like literally throw up.
Yep.
Like I just realized that I am neurodivergent and my anxiety gets to an all-time high and other things that transpire. But when I started having a physical response, I would tell them like, yo, I don't know if I could do this. I started declining meetings.
Yeah.
And I was told like, Hattie, you can't do that. Yes, I can. And
This is my boundary. I'm not taking
yeah,
any.
decline. You know what I mean? And I realized like either I decline or I'm just going to take off every time I got to meet this individual.
Right.
I ain't got that much time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like the vacation. Let's be clear. I want to use it. But I started realizing like I don't feel safe. And I'm like, I already don't feel safe out in the communities that don't look like me. I'm like, but when I don't feel safe in the communities that reflect me, that's where I have a problem.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, we supposed to be doing this work together.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was just kind of like this counterfeit moment. Like outside, you all about the people, but on the inside, you're not even taking care of your people. The one who has been doing this work for 20 plus years. Yeah. And I can't even ask for clarifying information. And so then I'm just like, how do you expect for me to talk about a culture of belonging where I don't feel like I belong here?
Yeah.
What do I do with that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of the things that a lot of times, right, we perpetuate the stereotypes that we hate. And that's part of knowing yourself, right? And really getting real about, I say all the time, perception is reality. Mm-hmm. And if I'm at home with my wife, shout out to my beautiful wife, Ashley.
Hey, Ashley.
The thing I love about her, and we used to work together a long time ago. We did not date, to be clear, until after we no longer worked together.
That's okay. That's your business.
Oh, I remember it's like, no. Anyway, but even when we worked together, was one of the things that I appreciate about her. She didn't always do it with tact, and we've talked about this, and we've healed from it. But she calls me out. She's like, "What do you always say, Beck? Perception is reality."
Right.
And so, I spent the first 15 years of my career working in women's leadership, and it was the thing I hated so much was when you would see then what we would think were strong female leaders walk into a room and then step on every woman who was trying to just simply do the thing that they needed to do.
Right.
And I think I liken that also to something that was my safe space. Mm-hmm. So going to Pride, you know, as an out lesbian, right? Like that's my community.
I love Pride.
I used to. I mean, I love what it represents. I love seeing the T-shirts, right? Like free mom hugs, free dad hugs, because that's, you know, I don't have the greatest relationship with my family, and so it touches my heart and my spirit, and I care about the queer community. Obviously, I'm a part of the queer community, but now when I go to Pride, the looks I get, like, what are you doing here? So even from my own community, right? Because nobody's clocking me,
right? Especially for those who don't know you,
right?
Because when I saw you, I really thought that you were a cisgender male.
Well, thank you.
And I will say, after you made that statement, the phrase came to me. I'm like, wow, this really is a thing. Yeah. I was like, they are. It's kind of like, you know, you said, oh, there really are black people around here. You know what I'm saying?
Right. There are trans. You likely know trans people. You just, that is not like everybody goes around being like, hello, my name is Beck and I am a transgender male and it is nice to meet you.
Right. And I think some people who are ignorant, you know what I mean, expect for those who are marginalized to walk in the room. Hi, my name is Hattie Matt Carter. I don't know if you know, but I'm a black woman.
Right.
Ta-da. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I think some people want us to do that to make them feel safe and comfortable, but it doesn't happen that way.
Right. Well, also, like, I'm like a lot of other dudes, right? Like, I like fishing. I ride my Harley. I like to go outside. I like to get dirty. I like to build stuff. I drive a truck, right?
You do.
I mean, I'm from the South, so I grew up with those influences of what Southern men are and what they perpetuate and all the things, right? Like that,
That's what that is.
You know, I'm a enlightened version of that stereotype.
So silly.
I mean, you know.
But when people see you, they be like, "Oh, I didn't know that."
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I love it when you get ready to drop it, because I'm looking in the room like,
I didn't know. I mean, I've had people fall out of their chairs.
yeah, when that lady dropped the phone, like loudly,
I know.
I was like, first of all,
I will say this, it is very affirming.
yeah,
Because, you know, like when you think about who you want to become and what you want to look like, and you finally, the first time I ever sort of walked by a mirror and I had to do a double take, I didn't recognize myself, but I recognized myself. Was a wild moment. So this is what I wanted to look in the mirror and see, right? But also, you know, my experience is different. Like I come from a very hairy stock people. Right. So I knew a beard would come eventually, but not every trans man that's going to happen for, because their people just may not be hairy people, right? It's not like you just put testosterone in your body and you start growing a beard.
Right.
It doesn't happen that way.
Right. Now you can get a weave though. I've been seeing a lot of men with weaves.
Look, there are beard transplants. It's a whole thing. Like it's all kinds of stuff. I mean, look,
okay,
people
don't do that, friend.
I'm just saying, like, I'm gonna go down a Google rabbit hole later. Anyway, but so my point is though, right? Like, I was hopeful for what I wanted to see when I looked in the mirror.
Yeah.
But there was no automatic that was gonna happen, right? And so now, when it is surprising to people, that's affirming, because that tells me, right, like I look the way I feel on the inside. That feels good.
I love that for you.
I love that for me too. And as I think the other thing I've said this to you before, and this is a little bit off topic, but I'm gonna say it anyway. As a transgender person, I choose to understand deeply the way that I feel about myself, right? Like I can tell you every part of my body that I hate and every part of my body that I love in a way that I've spent a lot of time evaluating and looking at, understanding the way I walk, understanding the way that I am perceived, the way I sit. And ironically, it's not that different than me 10 years ago, but to know thyself in that way, I think I am blessed to have to do that.
Right.
In a way that most people, a lot of times, are scared to really admit things about themselves. Right?
Well, I mean, for me too, growing up in a predominantly white community, you know, being from Enterprise, Alabama, one, I didn't live on the side of the train tracks where the other black people stayed at, you know, came from a 2-parent household. But when I tell you, it was really hard for me to understand who I was. And it wasn't until I moved here to where I started building a community where I actually understood that. Yeah. I actually started loving who I was becoming. And this aligns with the 3 principles of the lead up, you know, breaking, building, and becoming. As a leader, you have to know who you are on the inside. Yeah. And because only you can limit you at the end of the day. Yeah. And realizing that I was giving so many people my power because I didn't know what it felt like. Yeah. I didn't know what it and to be humble, open, and transparent, I really hated who I was.
Oh, me too.
I hated it.
Me too.
Because I was like, I felt like nobody appreciated me. I felt like nobody valued me, loved me. I was being taken advantage of, like all these things. But I had to realize, like, Hattie, you allowed that to happen. You have a choice to make. Yeah. You can either stand there and take it or not. And so when I tell you, like, I'm beginning to have this epiphany of I no longer have to accept that. I no longer have to shrink for you to be okay. Yeah. I no longer have to shrink because you don't understand what it means to be marginalized. Yeah. I no longer have to shrink because of your insecurity. Yeah. That's a you problem. That's not a me problem. Right. And I think one of the things I love about this conversation is that how it has unfolded to really knowing who you are. Yeah. And being able to walk in the room confident. It doesn't mean that you're going to be confident every day, right, but reassuring yourself that you matter, that you have value in this world, and you don't have to look for validation from anybody else. Yep. And so when I know that I have you, Ellen, Amber, Claire, Derice, like all these people in my life, Nakaya, that just pour into me when my cup is empty, I feel like, you know what? I don't have to shrink in rooms. I can get my power back.
Absolutely.
And it's so phenomenal to see you. And I'm glad that I know this version of you. I'm glad that I'm part of this chapter of you, and the many more chapters that we are going to have together is going to be phenomenal. I'm going to ask you one more question because I think we almost over time, but hopefully Ivan and Paige will give us a little bit more time.
Well, I know we've been jumping all over the place.
We have, but I've been kind of trying to recenter us. So you've been doing a fabulous job.
Sorry.
I'm going to need you to wear jeans and boots. Are these Tims?
No, they're like wannabe Tims. I am making that Tim money.
You ain't got to say that on
I'm going to say it. I told you, I am authentic to a fault. These are from Kohl's. I think they were $19.99. One day I'll have Tim money.
Do they have memory foam in them?
I bought memory foam to put on. It was like $5. It's the add-on option at Kohl's.
Are they Tims?
I had Kohl's cash.
I'm done with you.
That might be the whitest thing I've ever said.
No, I use Kohl's cash.
All right.
Yeah, not often. And the girl that wouldn't let me use it last time, shame on you.
Look,
Your mama.
the prices aren't real at Kohl's. Let's get real.
They're not, but your mama, because she couldn't let me use my Kohl's cash. It was the day before. Oh, I'm sorry, it hasn't started yet.
See, here's the thing. I was not committed to Tim's yet. I was like, am I a Tim's kind of guy? Can I pull off the Tim's?
I mean, you pulling them off now.
Well, thank you. So, like, this is the baby step to the Tim's.
Okay.
So, like,
Baby Tim's.
Yeah, I'll go to the outlet. Eventually, I'll get Tim's.
Okay. All right. You know what? I'm going to buy you some Tim's. Ashley, is it okay if I buy your man some Tim's? Please. And thank you. You're welcome. Okay. Last question. Who gets the edited version of you and who actually gets the truth? And why don't those two versions ever get to exist in the same room? Woo. This is a good question.
Here's my therapist. I need my therapist for this question. Honestly, and this is probably the saddest thing that I will say, but my parents get the edited version of me. I can't be myself. I can't, because look, as somebody who grew up with a lot of trauma, and some of which I speak about in my article that I wrote. And that's like, a little bit of
I had to push you with that one.
I know. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you doing that because what I said needed to be said.
I was like, this ain't the person I know. Again.
And I revert back to this, 11-year-old kid who is scared and alone and terrified of who they are, traumatized by some religion and fear of roasting in hell on the regular, right? Fire and brimstone for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and dessert on Sundays.
I'm so done with you.
I can't help it.
Why are you doing me like?
Look, we talked about it. I'm a recovering Southern Baptist. Like, we have that,
We do have that.
Look,
Stop it.
lots of intersectionality. But that version of me, it's like I can't effectively establish a healthy boundary. I continue to let the psychological trauma continue. I mean, we talked about this not that long ago.
Absolutely.
My parents don't call me by my chosen and now legal name. And so, but my biological mother left when I was 8 years old. Right? She dropped us off at the babysitter. She didn't come back. And it wasn't until I was 20, 21 that we reconciled. And so that fear of abandonment is just constant in the back of my head. It has informed so many things, poor choices I have made. And so the constant argument in my head is if I really show who I am, they're going to leave.
Right.
And so I'd rather be treated like garbage. I'd rather take this version because if I don't, then I lose them and something happens, am I going to be able to forgive myself? And look, we can talk about, I've had lots of therapy, to be clear. I'm fine. I'm happy now. I'm okay. I promise.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean there's still not pain with that relationship. And so they get absolutely the most edited version of me because I know that there is no acceptance. Right.
And it's like they will mishandle your vulnerabilities.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm like that too. I think like my true circle gets like the unedited version.
Yes.
But because I work in corporate, that is edited Hattie.
Yeah.
And I know how to turn it on and to turn it off. But when there's conversations that strike the unedited version, it's like I'm talking to myself like, girl, don't do it. It's not worth it. Yeah. And sometimes, I told you before we got started, I'm a runner. I will run. Because I know me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I can escape the situation, I don't want, because I know the narrative that comes with Black women in corporate America. It's like the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with it. But I know for myself that I can't give you my true self because you're going to mishandle it. And I realized throughout several relationships with certain leaders that was mishandled.
Yeah.
It got taken advantage of, and some people became intimidated of the real version of me.
Yep.
And how people gravitated to that true version. And so, and I also have to edit myself at times because I'm like, I don't want to be harmed.
Yeah.
I've been there, done that. I don't want to do it. And there are some family members that get the edited version as well. Yeah. So I have to pick and choose where I can be the true Hattie. And I don't want people like, oh, well, I wonder if she's ever been fake with me. I haven't. But there's only certain parts of me that I'm going to give you.
Yeah.
Because as a woman of faith, I know that my role is to love you unconditionally, but I don't have to give you access to all of me.
Right.
And that's just with anybody. Like if I can't trust you with me, and I also will observe you too. If I see how you talking and treating other people,
Yep.
I can only imagine what you do for me when we're behind closed doors or when I'm not around. Like how do you speak upon my name when I'm not there? Yeah. That's really important to me.
Yeah.
And so even with my edited version, when I walk into these rooms and I have to perform rather than transform, I am so exhausted when I'm done. I'm like sitting at my desk like, Lord have mercy.
Yep.
Ooh, that took a lot out of me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it does. Because
yes.
I'm like, I'm not trying to rock the boat. I have to coddle your feelings because you really don't want the truth.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what's the man Jack Nicholson? You can't handle the truth. Yeah. And I know that.
Well, and the other thing I think is that a lot of times presenting, right, being on stage and talking about a lot of the hard things that we talk about is that I'm trying to think about, if I say this, is it going to immediately put up a barrier?
Yeah.
And then they're not going to listen. So how can I get somebody comfortable and sort of get to know me a little bit, understand some things about myself, right? What's a little bit of my origin story, sort of, right, like share some things sporadically, you know, it's kind of scattered throughout what I talk about. And at the end, I'm really honest about, okay, now here's who I am.
Right.
And you may think something differently about me. I'm not telling you this because I'm trying to get sympathy. I'm not trying to tell you this because I'm trying to change your opinion. All I'm trying to say is, right, that this is who I am.
Right.
Here's the pieces of me that I share, no matter who's in the room. Here are the pieces that I might not be safe, right, if I say this out loud.
I got to hold delicate.
Right. Yeah. And so I got to really read the room and decide, am I going to say this? Am I going to say this? Even something as simple as tattoos, right? Like I'm covered in tattoos. But if I roll my sleeves up or if I don't, it is dependent on who's in the room.
Yeah.
And so because the worst thing about right now to me is just people's unwillingness to listen to each other.
To know the facts.
Right.
To do your research.
And so if I can sort of be, right, this little bit of like, right, just listener, ask a couple questions back and try to share some things and make people, hopefully the next time that they have a conversation with somebody, question like, oh, you know what? I remember this person who said this to me. You never forget, I went to this leadership conference for young adults, and this kid comes up to me, 16 years old, and he's like dressed in his dad's suit, right? Like he's from rural Pennsylvania, and he walks up to me and he shakes my hand and he says, Mr. Moore, while your story didn't resonate with me, it did with others at the table. And so I just want to really say thank you for sharing, because I know it really mattered to other people. And I will never forget that kid, because that's what I'm trying to create.
Yes.
And also that kid, hopefully, right, remembers that while he didn't understand, it does matter to other people.
Right.
Right. And that's why it goes back to with that the conversation I had with that guy over over drinks. And I said to him, I was like, you don't need to understand. You're never going to feel.
You just need to know that it matters.
Right.
Yeah. Every person on this earth matters.
Right.
And if we just take time and stop demanding people to shrink for our own selves, I think a lot of people will be able to walk more in their confidence and in their power.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love that group specifically because kids will tell you the truth.
Girl.
And we need it. I don't know if I was that outspoken as a kid, but
Oh, I was not. I was too scared of getting smacked and
yeah.
told to go to my room and not getting dinner.
Wow. Not getting banana pudding.
No banana pudding. Right. Banana pudding kind of month or not. I don't know. It depends. Was daddy working 2 jobs or not? I don't know.
Look, I am so... This episode really blessed my soul today. 1, because it's you. But 2, like having real, authentic conversations is one of the things that we have founded upon with the lead up is like real leaders, real stories, real transformation. And I see that in you. When I tell people I love them, and I do mean it. But when I tell you have a piece of my heart, and I get so excited when you text me, when you call me, when you say, hey, what do you think about this? Just the investment that we have poured into each other. I don't think I could have been blessed with anything more. And so thank you so much for coming on the show today. Thank you for dressing as I asked, because I was like, you better not come in here in no suit in a lapel. We ain't doing that today.
I love a good suit.
I know you do, but I love this. I love this unedited version.
No, I appreciate you.
Of you. Even the hat is backwards. Last week your beard was more out there.
I know.
You shaped it.
It was hot. It got hot.
I know,
and I was like, I
but
can't
the beard
keep
was
this beard.
bearding.
I know. Well, it'll come back. Don't worry.
Okay. I'm just keep the beard for your girl. I
It'll
appreciate it.
come
Now,
back, don't
Ashley, once again, I'm sorry if I'm overstepping. My apologies. But the beard be bearding, and I love it.
I think after Summit, I'm just going to go mustache, and that's going to be, everybody's going to be like, what are you doing that for, Beck?
I would be so mad with you.
Well, look, sometimes you just got to restart.
No,
okay?
no.
Sometimes, yeah,
it's
happening. I'm going to take a picture. Even as soon as day after Summit.
You better not.
I'm going to shave it.
I'm going to say decline.
Well, look, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Because the opportunity to be able to tell my story and hopefully have people hear it and understand that there's hope, and moments are moments. Got to take life day by day.
Absolutely.
And even in the hardest moments, right, there are always people who love and care about you. Mm-hmm. And you're pulling out the chair for people. I'm
trying to be like Shirley Chisholm. If you don't have a seat at the table, bring out a folding chair. Yeah. I got folding chairs in my pockets. Yeah. I do. So I'm just really grateful. And what you all have poured into the lead up, I know we're going to be collaborating together within the next couple of weeks at your summit. So tell us a little bit about that and where people can find you, and how do we pull up to CAP?
Shameless plugs here.
Yes.
So we have a podcast also, The Thinking Cap.
Uh-huh.
Thinking Cap, 2 A's, CAAP.
Come on now.
You've been a guest a couple times.
I have.
Lots of my friends, good guests, talk about leadership, talk about community action, the great work that our organizations are doing across the state of Pennsylvania and beyond across the country. Mm-hmm. We also are a training and technical assistance organization. We work with individuals like you to bring the most effective, best learning thoughts to things like workplace culture, trying to help organizations really run administratively less burdensome. So you can check us out at thecapcaap.org. Find me on LinkedIn, Beck Moore.
Mm-hmm. Right. In a suit.
In a suit, yes. have a newsletter from Policy to People, which talks about leadership quite often and talks about, again, the work of community action. So find me on any of those platforms, or in the lead up.
You're one of our first contributing writers.
I'm a little nervous.
I had to push you.
I know. I'm nervous about this article because I really bore my soul, and I'm a little terrified because I've never written about it.
That's all right, but I'm gonna pull. I wish somebody would say something. Yeah. What you said? Who? Oh, I thought you said something. Try me. Yeah. Try Jesus. Don't try me. Anyway, so once again, I thank you. I appreciate you. I love you. All right, y'all. That is a wrap. This is Hattie B from the Lead Up, and stay tuned for our next episode. Peace.